Happy Wednesday.
Yeah, happy Wednesday.
What have you been up to? Moving a lot of freight?
Yeah, it's been really busy, which busy is good, right? But it's been a lot, and we're gearing up for the move. Lots of moving parts down here. Hiring some people as well, so onboarding training. It's always really fun stuff.
Oh, 100%. I'm looking forward to coming down there when the weather's nicer in Birmingham.
Yeah, we can work on fixing your golf swing, so your back's not messed up.
It's got some problems, I'll tell you that. It was apparent this morning. I tell you, the golf course at 6 a.m. is much different than the golf course. 6 a.m. on a weekday is much different than the golf course at 1 p.m. on a Saturday.
Yeah, man, I prefer playing really early. My ideal time if I'm playing golf, I want to be one of the first groups going out so I can be finished early. And it's usually not as hot, which I don't know what the weather's like in Minnesota, but down here in Alabama, if you go play golf at 1, 2 p.m., it's pretty brutal this time of the year.
It can be depending on the day. But yeah, let's kind of run through our sponsors here. Sales Dash CRM. Obviously, Will is a client of theirs. I've known Josh for a while. Freight specific CRM. I think. Can you even think of another freight specific CRM out there? I was just thinking about that right now.
No, I mean the only ones that I know of you'd have to build out to be freight centric, but Josh and his people have already done that, so it kind of comes out of the box for what you need. I mean, you can make some changes, but man, it's badass software. We love it. All of my sales reps, we did quarterly reviews, and I mean it got brought up in every single one where the employee is using it or has been exposed to it.
No, that's fantastic. Shout out to Trio doing our back end work. Any staffing needs, reach out to them. Obviously, HD ships. If you're looking to be an agent, I'd love to talk to you. Black Box, Will's hiring in Birmingham, and then on the background, because we can't fit everything, brought to you by Taft's. Will just made a post about this today, but I mean, one of premier or top 10 factoring company, great communication, great people, Midwest roots. Can't say enough positive things about them.
Yeah, 100%. And Black Box is also a customer Trio. We use a few of their guys. It's great back end help. So episode 16, we're TMS heavy this week.
Yeah, we got it'll be a fun 2 weeks. We're TMS heavy, and then next week we're training heavy. So we kind of have gone in like a topic week, which I think is kind of cool because give different perspectives. And yeah, I'm excited to talk to Michael and Danielle. Two great people in the TMS space. So
yeah, 100%. I could give a rundown on Michael, but I think it'd be better if we just add him on stage and let him introduce himself. So Michael, thanks for joining us. How are you?
Thanks for having me. I'm doing well, man.
How is it with the setup? We were just talking pre-stage. Michael's out of town, so we're doing this remotely today.
Yeah, like a lot of people right now, I got hit with flight cancellations. They claimed it was because of weather. I suspect it's still a shakeout from the CrowdStrike stuff, but that's neither here nor there. So yeah, stuck at the in-laws. Had to put together a little setup and pull an extension cord from the front door onto the front porch and sit the laptop on a chair because lighting was not good in the I guess it's my brother-in-law's old bedroom since I'm at my in-laws house, but we're here. Thankfully we can do this from anywhere, right? So all good.
Yeah. Well, the lighting looks great. It worked out well.
Yeah, I love the rocking chairs too. I think that's cool. We haven't had a guest have that before, so
I'll do my best to not rock, but it's difficult because it's just so easy to do.
Well, I guess kind of how we normally start with a lot of guests is kind of give us your background and how you got into transportation into the into the TMS world.
Yeah, so I've been in sales for pretty much my whole professional career. Like a lot of us, I kind of started from the bottom, and when I say the bottom, literally knocking doors residentially, going door to door, asking people to sponsor a child in a third world country for whatever it was, 92 cents a day or whatever the hell the number was at the time. So I kind of cut my teeth and earned my stripes in that environment, which is obviously very prospecting heavy and teaches you all of the intangibles about sales, resilience and perseverance and consistency and, all the taglines, right? But obviously that wasn't very sustainable. And so I actually ended up knocking on someone's door who sold copiers business to business. And he liked me enough. He basically said, hey, why don't you come work for us? You'll make a little bit more money. So I went and did that. And then just kind of got sick, honestly, of just driving around and hitting doors and doing all this stuff. So wanted to get into tech, did not have any intention of it being TMS or transportation related. The 3PL systems job was one of many that I applied to. And I don't think they responded to me for like 4 months until after I had applied. Like I didn't even know who it was when they called me. And yeah, just landed there, and it'll be 8 years in September that I've been with 3PL Systems. So, figured out the space, learned a lot about the industry. It's one of those things, as you guys know, until you're in it, it's kind of like an unforeseen part of the economy, and you don't realize how critical it is to what's going on. So, had a lot of fun learning about the space and, honing my skills in software sales and, just becoming a better sales professional ultimately. But yeah, it's been like I said, 8 years now that I've been at 3PL Systems selling TMS to freight brokerages.
A long time. What are the? I don't mean to jump right into it, but over the 8 years, what are some of the changes that you've seen in 3PL? I mean, are you guys doing a bunch of updates, or what's been the biggest change on the TMS side from your perspective?
Yeah. So when I started with the company, we were actually selling what I'll call a fairly dated product. The first time I saw the software, I was kind of like, you're kidding. Like, this is not what I'm selling. Right. Cause I put it in front of people and just visually, it just looked very dated. Yeah. But when I started with the company, there was already a project underway to rewrite the whole platform from the ground up and re-release it without using a single line of code. And so when was that? June of 2018, we signed the first client on the new software. And since then, we've been, just releasing tons of different modules and different functions and features. I mean, we have hundreds of integrations at this point. That's just kind of the nature of the space. You have to do that. But being able to sell a tool that isn't built, that looks like it's built from like 1990s, which I'm not going to name any names, but we all know there's TMSs out there that are like that. And so we have young leadership, myself included, and our CEO, Cameron. And so we didn't want to be selling an old piece of software, just to be real blunt about it. And so Cameron had made that call to change this to the platform and rewrite everything from the ground up. And it's really accelerated our growth quite a bit. It's allowed us to scale our brokerage operations that we support quite a bit. Because with the old software, it was written in 2005, was when the first line of code was laid. So we've been around for almost 20 years. And in 2016, I was selling the same product. It was a different version of it, but it was the same product, right? And so I think software has a shelf life, and I'm just grateful that our leadership, when I joined the company, had already decided to change and rewrite everything. And I think that's been the biggest change. But from a higher level, we see so many more people that are coming out with these complementary tools, whether it's a tracking solution or a pricing solution or a load board. And everybody's more focused on actually what I call playing nice in the sandbox. Whereas when I first started, everybody was siloed. Nobody wanted to work together. If you did integrate, it was a very unique situation, and it was not a real partnership. And we're seeing a lot more collaboration between tech providers, understanding that kind of I don't have to be everything to everybody. And if each person has their piece, if we work together, then we all collectively can support and rise each other up.
That's interesting. Yeah. I didn't know it was like that, 8 years ago. How was it too? I know we kind of jumped ahead a little bit, but how was it getting into, transportation and having to learn about the brokerage, the carrier aspect? I mean, how was it making sales calls, the first couple months as a, TMS and trying to learn, what a truckload is, what a reefer is, what drayage is, learning all that.
Confusing, to say the least, right? I knew nothing. I knew nothing about transportation when I came in. I basically had a list of contacts, a laptop, and a phone. So I just went back to what I knew, which was like, I'm just going to prospect and I'm just going to learn along the way, right? Because technically, you don't have to know much to set a meeting, right? You got to know a few things about what you do and the problems you solve, and you can set a meeting. So it took a lot of time. I know that both of you will understand this because I'm sure you're the same way. It takes a certain amount of grit and desire to learn to be able to succeed in this kind of role. And so I'm the kind of person that if I don't understand something, it bothers me. And so making that intentional effort to, for lack of a better word, not sound like a dumbass when I'm talking to my clients and my prospects was really important to me. But shit, I'm 8 years in and I'm still learning things, right? I think I've got a pretty damn good grasp on it. But by no means do I think, I've got everything figured out. But I think, to your point though, Matt, I think it's a huge differentiator in any sale. I know you talk about this, you post about this with like the agent side, being an agent yourself, being a broker yourself. It makes a big difference when you're talking to people because they actually understand that you understand, right?
Yeah, no, definitely. But I think, I think you see a lot of tech providers that do well without having been an actual broker. You just probably have to put more effort in at the beginning, I'm imagining, to learn that field.
Yeah. Ultimately, you do need some sort of subject matter expertise, whether that's your sales guys or whether you have like a sales engineer like Danielle who's coming on tomorrow. I know she's a sales engineer. I never had that at 3PL Systems, right? So like I was the SDR, I was the account executive, and I was the sales engineer, right? And so I was doing full cycle, still do, but that has given me the ability to learn and improve my skill set. Not to say either one's right or wrong. I think sales engineers are great. I think they're really valuable. But if you get someone who can do actual prospecting, actual AE activities, and have the knowledge of a sales engineer, I think you've got a wicked combination there.
What are you seeing too on the kind of the front lines right now from customers? I mean, we're hearing about AI automation every single day. I mean, what are you kind of hearing from customers out there that's the most important for them, when looking for a TMS?
I need to choose my words wisely here.
Yeah.
Let's just say the market has done really well making it seem like AI is a bigger thing than it is in transportation, because it's just not. And we were talking about this last night on Tech Bro Tuesday on Reed's little Discord channel. There's not actually a ton of good applications for AI in the space, and there's probably a lot of people listening that disagree with me, and that's okay. Green screens is one of them that it makes a lot of sense. You have all these inputs for pricing, and you can intelligently train a model to make these assertions around price that it does make sense. But I think so many customers or prospects are like, well, what are you doing with AI? What are you doing with AI? What are you doing with AI? And we tell them not a lot. That doesn't mean we're not looking into it. That doesn't mean we're not interested in it. But there's so many things that don't need AI. And I think people want to just use AI or say AI for the sake of saying it as a marketing buzzword. And unfortunately, it works, right? It works in the sense that like a lot of people, prospects and customers are like, oh, great. Well, so-and-so is using AI. Why aren't you guys? But I think a lot of that comes down to education as well, making sure that people know like what is AI, what isn't AI, and what's the real benefit of it. So, AI is a buzzword, in my opinion. Ultimately, it comes down to the same thing with every business, right? It's like customers are looking to be more efficient. They're looking to cover more freight quicker, and they're looking to avoid any sort of hiccups or discrepancies that come up with the loads, right? And so if your tools can drive towards those three main things, you're going to win in any environment, right?
Yeah, I was going to say, at least from where I sit, I see a lot of, seems like AI and automation get mixed, right? And here's JJ, one of our sponsors over at Trio, right? AI is not automation. So at Black Box, we leverage a lot of automation. We don't do any AI. And I think that people get the two intermixed, right? Automation's following preset rules. It's pulling off a benchmark. So it's almost like a rule flow, right? So it's you control the automation, and that there are lots of use cases for that. But then some of the AI stuff, like, man, in my opinion, I think it's really easy to maybe make a little promo video, right? Demoing my AI for a carrier sales. But it's like, man, okay, you made a 30-second video, but if I really wanted to trip up your little AI carrier sales spot, like, I'm fairly confident I could, right? Like, sure, you can ask it the right questions, and then you can clip it and then blow it up and hashtag AI and hashtag we're replacing carrier sales. But really, like, in actuality, like, no, like, it's like, I don't know, at least the people that have pitched me kind of like the AI solutions, I think that we're still pretty far away. But the automation makes sense to me. Like, we use automation. It does. We don't use it to replace employees or people. We do it to improve efficiencies, to help them, but not replace them, right? So I think that that's an important distinction. AI and automation aren't the same. You kind of mix them in intelligent automation, but for the most part, they're two separate concepts and things that get blended together when they shouldn't be.
Yeah, you're spot on, man. I think I made a post about this like either last week or the week before, where it's like automation mimics human actions and AI mimics human thinking, right? But they do get so convoluted all the time. And I don't think it's intentional a lot of the time. I don't think people are being nefarious. I think sometimes they are. I think sometimes people know it's not AI, but they're just saying it.
Yeah.
But it's interesting. The one thing you were talking about from a technology perspective. So you said like, yeah, of course you can make this thing work and you can shoot your video and it looks like it's good. But from an end user standpoint, I'm pretty sure I could make it break, is effectively what you were saying.
Yeah.
And so it's interesting in technology. One of the things that we deal with is that software engineers will test to pass, what we call test to pass. They know how to make it work. So they'll test it that way and it works. And then you get it in front of an end user or a non-technologist and it breaks because they use it differently than the engineer who built it. And there's constantly this disconnect, and you're trying to close this gap as a software company between, no, we built it and it works, versus like, no, it works for the end user. They're two very different things, right? And so, I think it's an important distinction that you made for sure.
I think that this is a pretty good point, JJ, with Trio again. AI hasn't dealt with an extreme trucker. I mean, yeah, it's like, you can build out certain prompts, right? But like some things, even with real humans, right? There's certain things that you can't train for, like know what to do, and like these situations arise, and it's at a certain point you don't really like want the AI just kind of
totally.
It probably doesn't have enough information to really like gauge an accurate like response, right? How to do things, and it could escalate. There's no like where's the quality control? You don't really like know what you're opening up a Pandora's box essentially. If you're, in my opinion, at least.
Totally.
How does it work with these integrations with everyone having a new AI and new automation? So do you get calls all the days from your customers and prospects? Hey, this company has this new amazing AI feature that we want to integrate to our TMS, and like how do you deal with that with customers and prospects, because it's a new company every day or every week, it feels like.
Yeah, no, it's a great question. So at a certain scale, which we're at in terms of customers, you're getting these requests multiple a day, right? Because there are so many things out there and there's so many different brokers that are bringing us stuff every day. So for us, the litmus test is twofold. Let's go with the first one. So if a company that's not a broker reaches out to us first, what we'll tell them is find one of our customers that wants to use your solution, and then we can talk to you. Until one of our customers wants to use your platform, not to be rude, but like we're not even going to consider it, right? Because we're going to trust that our clients know best, and they're going to vet those tools and bring them to us when it makes sense for them, right? 100%. Now, that's the first side. Now, the other side is if a customer brings it to us, we'll typically ask them two things. Number one, are you willing to pay for it? And that's not because we're being greedy, but if it matters enough to you, you're willing to pay for it because you can see the ROI on it. And it doesn't matter if we charge you whatever the integration fee is, because you see a clear path to ROI. If you don't want to pay for it, at the very least, we're making our clients think about how much is it actually worth to them, right? Because if it's worth it, it doesn't matter if it's $10,000. It doesn't matter if it's $50,000 for us to charge, which we wouldn't charge that much. But if we did, if you're going to net $1 million off of this $50,000 integration fee, you're going to pay for it, right? It's simple math, right? So those are kind of the ways that we test it out. And the other way is that if someone brings it up, we'll kind of vet it out through the rest of our customers. So it's kind of like the squeaky wheel gets the oil kind of thing. If we have multiple customers asking about the same thing, then obviously we know that there's something there, right? So actually tomorrow we're doing what we call a heads together meeting, which is effectively like a think tank for all 3PL Systems customers and our team, where we have an open forum and people just talk about, can we do this? Can we do that? Have you guys heard of this? Have you heard of that? We want to change this. We want to add this. And we kind of have this group think session where everybody can chime in, and then we'll basically just rank, here's what got the most interest, and that's what we're going to build, and we'll kind of rank them in priority after that. So there's a lot of different ways to do it, but it gets overwhelming, Matt. There's so many freaking tools, man, and everybody's coming out with a new one every day. It's a lot.
Are you the ones they're trying to sell to? Like, is your DM just full of, hey, can we talk about setting us up as an integration partner? Is that like your DM and email just full with those requests every week?
Yeah. Well, the funniest part is when they come into the sales email and it looks like an inbound lead, like they'll use our like demo request form, and it comes in. Obviously, like any decent salesperson, I'll look at the email domain, I'll look at the website, I'll figure it out. I'm like, you're a tech provider, man. You don't want my software. You want to sell me, which is fine. I don't care, but just be forthright about it. Just tell me what's going on, right? But it happens all the time, Matt, all the freaking time.
I feel like that's a good way to kind of decipher what's worth integrating versus what's not, right? Because I mean, it's really only expensive if the value's not there, right? When you consider ROI, I mean, there's one tool that I'm thinking of that we use, this company, and I'm not going to mention them by name, but they have a reputation for being very expensive. And when I look at it, it's really not. If you're leveraging the tool the right way, the ROI is there tenfold. I mean, the tool I'm thinking of, I made my money back within 2 weeks on it, right? So then anything is a plus, right? But if you just look at it out of context, and I don't know, it's only expensive if the value's not there, and if the value's there, then they're probably going to be willing to pay for it. At least in integrations that we've done, when we've had to pay for it, it does make you think. It's like, is it worth it? Is it not worth it? Because especially right now, the AI is hot, so I'm sure there's a bunch of people just throwing stuff at the wall and seeing what sticks, so to speak.
Is there anything on your guys' radar? I'm just curious. Is there anything that you guys are seeing in the marketplace that is kind of an emerging technology that you think may gain some traction and be able to integrate with some of these TMS providers that maybe isn't as popular right now?
Well, I saw one the other day I sent to Will and a couple other people in our group chat. It's probably the one he was referencing with the video. I thought it was a pretty cool, like, AI, like talking to the truck driver, basically. I forget the name of the company. There's probably a couple of them out there, but like they were posting some video and I sent it to Will and a couple other people. But I thought it was really cool, but I'm not very techie. So I think some of the other people in my group chat were a little more skeptical.
Sure.
Yeah. So for me, I'm seeing a lot. So this is just personally, right? I'm not speaking for like the market as a whole, but Black Box, my company, we were formed as, and we still are. We're a very people-centric company. We're based out of Birmingham, Alabama, right? It's relationship-based, and we're a small business. I mean, there's 45 of us. So the first 18 months or so, we weren't very tech forward. But over the past 18 months to 2 years or so, I've been exposed to some technology, and really I've mentioned automation a few times and leveraging that, and even automating pricing and certain boards and whatnot. And that's been extremely useful and helpful. I mean, even basic stuff, which when I'm speaking to you, 3PL systems, you're gonna be like, yeah, no shit. But like eating out like that, just like pretty like common stuff. But we're getting a little bit, more advanced with how we're doing stuff and seeing. We're being a little bit more open-minded, and when I see something, kind of investigating, right? Can we use this? Is there value for us? And then what the video Matt sent, that was what I was referencing with the video. I'm not bullish. I'm not bullish on that automation as a whole. I love automation.
Yeah, Matt, you'll have to send me that video, dude. I'm interested to see it.
I'll have to find it again. But it was a company that just came. I forget the name. It just came up. But I wish them the best. I thought it was really cool. So I'm more bullish on it than Will. But what about?
I don't mean to interrupt you, Matt. But so in certain circumstances, so for example, like some companies have maybe a proprietary chat bot, right? And if used properly for certain conversations, it's fine. In my opinion, when you give it free reign on like selling loads or just answering questions or even check calls, it can go awry. But if it's trying to achieve a single task that's pretty straightforward, that maybe collecting PODs, clean bills, in and out time, stuff like that, in a controlled environment, I think that you can probably use it. But as a whole, I'm not sold that it's there. It's where it needs to be to just kind of turn over a carrier sales operation where it's like, hey, AI's taking all these calls and selling our loads for us.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, even you guys are younger than the average freight brokerage operation, but freight brokerage as a whole is very resistant to new technology. You guys know this. I mean, even Will, you said when you first started, it wasn't that you were resistant; you just weren't focused on it, right?
Well, I was kind of resistant. I used to be those people. I was like, no, like computers can't quote loads. Like, what are you talking about? So that's ridiculous.
And I get it. I agree with you to a degree, and I think so much of the approach that these tech providers should take, and this is just my 2 cents, is like, we're not here to replace the human. We're here to like augment and improve the human, right? Because so many people, when it comes out, it's like, no, you don't need people. Just let this chatbot, to use your example, just let this chatbot do it for you. You don't need to hire people. And like, in theory, sure, like that sounds great, but like, what's the real practical outcome and application of that? Yeah. Brokers are going to be skeptical as shit about that, right? This is an old school industry that's built on like knocking on doors, picking up phones, flying to see people in their offices, and really building relationships. And I don't think that's going anywhere, and I don't think it should. That's how I learned how to sell, not in freight, but that's how I learned to sell as well. And so I have an interesting perspective being like, I'm a guy who sells technology, but I still don't think it's the silver bullet. And a lot of people are pitching their technologies as the silver bullet, and I think that's a mistake.
How hard is that, in the sales process, just like educating customers on technology or the capabilities? I mean, we were just touching on that there's a lot of old school, brokerage owners. How difficult is that? Is that like one of the biggest challenges you have? I mean, I know the, sales cycle is pretty long. I made a post yesterday. I think TMS sales is the hardest sales out there in logistics, but.
Well, I'm biased, but I agree with you. I definitely agree with you. But is it one of the hardest things? Absolutely. And there's a couple pieces to that. The first piece is like, our software does a lot more than most people use it for, right? And we have to be okay with that. And we have to understand what pieces of the technology matter to them, and not try to sell them all this other cool shit that we do that frankly they don't care about and they're never going to use, right? And so that's been just more of a learning thing, and I think that just comes with maturity in any sort of sales cycle, that you just figure out like, it doesn't matter all this cool stuff that we do if the customer doesn't care about it. I know that sounds so elementary, but I think we've all had those epiphanies early in our sales career. And so really figuring out the pieces of that technology that work for them in the specific use cases that they want. Because the TMS is huge, right? It's not like a tracking solution. We just do tracking, or a pricing solution. This is just for pricing, right? There's like so many things that we can do that really dialing that in and figuring that out. And then, yeah, I call them the old guard, right? So the old guard that exists in freight brokerage, they're very stuck in their ways, and it's not wrong. It's worked for them. It's gotten them to where they're at. They've built their careers in the ways that they have. And I think the change management piece in telling people like, for example, I had a prospect a couple years ago who, and I shouldn't even say a prospect, just a lead that I called on. And it was a cold call. And he's like, look, even if your software doubled our efficiency and cost me 50% less, I wouldn't switch. And I was like, okay, well, like, what the fuck am I supposed to do with that, right? First of all, I'm like, okay, but why, right? I'm like, just curious. And he goes, look, I've got like 500 employees in multiple different locations trained on this software. We've been using it for 25 years. It's too much change. I don't want to deal with it. And at that point, like, I don't blame the guy necessarily, but it's definitely tough because, again, a TMS being the cornerstone of any brokerage, it's not like I'm saying like, hey, let's get a new tracking solution and it's like one piece, or like, hey, let's get a new load board, or let's get a new pricing tool. It's like, no. Like, let me upend like 90% of the software that your company uses all across every freaking department, and trust me that it's going to work, right? It's a difficult sale.
Yeah, I was going to say, so, I mean, you're talking about how complex TMSs can be if you guys have all the bells and whistles. One, that could be overwhelming to whoever you're trying to sell to, which sounds like you understand that. But if somebody came at me and talking about A, B, C, D, like all this stuff they don't know anything about, it's just kind of, it's a lot, right? And then past that, what you're talking about with this, well, you called him a prospect, then somebody you called on, right?
Yeah.
You get the prospect role. But yeah, I mean, it's understandable, right? Because it's if he has 500 people, it's what they're using all day, every day. So not only is that change just so much, right? But we're undergoing it here, and it's man, we have 45 people, and you've been tasked with that. I mean, it's a lot, right? And then passing all the data is so valuable, right? I mean, it's your entire operating system. So if you have something and maybe it's not the most efficient, but you're used to it, everybody's up on it running. I mean, to move it all and put faith in another provider, I mean, that's a massive jump. So I would agree with Matt. I've never done TMS sales, but I mean, that'd be difficult. Then you've got contracts, right? So it's not like freight, right? Freight brokers are calling. So, man, you might get a load on this phone call. They might have something for you to go today. They're not, hey, we're under, we're this contract for the next 18 months. Right. So.
right?
Are you still chasing that lead, or did they ever switch their TMS?
I don't know. I never called them again.
Well, that's a tough sell.
Well, that's the other thing, right? You guys will understand this. There's enough people that will say yes. There's enough people that I can call on and find that are interested. And that's also something I know you guys have both been in sales for long enough that you learn over time. It's like, I don't have to chase everything. I don't even have to convince everybody. I just need to find the people that are going to say yes and work with those people, right? There's enough to go around, right? And the flip side of that, obviously the brokerage market for TMS is small, and we can make all those arguments. But I think a lot of that comes down to like responsibly growing your sales organization, and not like, we're not going to add 15 new sales reps and expect them to hit any sort of reasonable number. Because I frankly just don't think there's that much out there for people that are looking to buy a TMS for a brokerage today, right? Especially with all the other competition out there. So no, I never called that guy back. I don't even remember what his name is, but I just remember that sticking out in my head of being like, you know, those moments when you just like, you put the phone down, you take a deep breath, and you're like, damn it, dude, like, how hard is this, right? Like we've all had those, right? That was one of them.
Do you remember your first customer you sold selling TMS?
Yeah, I did a trash job. They're still a customer of ours.
Trash job.
Like, yeah. Well, like I don't even think I closed them. Like I remember, like I think it was probably an inbound lead. I did the demo, and it was probably terrible because it was like my first 2 months with the company. I did the demo. I probably didn't follow up the right way, at least the way I would now. And then they just called me one day, and they're like, "Hey, so yeah, we're gonna do it." And I'm like, "You're gonna what?" And they just like kind of closed. They're still a client, and they have a couple instances. They have a couple different divisions of the company, so we've got a few different accounts with them. So those gimmies are good though in the early days, right? They give you that confidence, that dumb blind confidence that maybe this does work, right?
Yeah.
I heard you say follow up, that you wouldn't follow up, differently now. Kind of talk about that. I guess kind of how has your approach kind of, changed? What's how do you go approach, you just cold calling, brokerages, or relying heavily on referrals? How are you like interacting with potential, prospects, whether that be follow up or initial calls? What's your strategy in the TMS game?
Yeah. It's a lot different for me now because I have a pipeline that I've built over almost 8 years, right? And so I've got a lot of stuff that I can pull from different sources. So whether it's referrals or cold calls or, someone who I talked to 2 years ago who I know their contract is expiring 6 months from now, right? I've got a really well mapped out pipeline. So I'm not as heavy on cold calling as I used to be. That doesn't mean we're not as a company. Anthony, who you know, Matt, a little bit, Anthony, who works with us as a sales guy, because he's still building his pipeline. He's cold calling all the time, right? He's cold calling. He's trying to build out the pipeline. But from a follow-up perspective, Matt, it's one of those things that I just my early sales career before I came to 3PL Systems was so heavy on prospecting, and there were shorter sales cycles that I didn't really understand how to properly nurture and manage an account through this lengthy, complex sales process. So I was just so focused on like filling up top of the funnel instead of like really managing people through the process. And so I've just gotten a lot better at understanding where people are in their journey to buying new software and really contextualizing my messaging to that, right? Instead of just like when I was getting kids sponsored in third world countries, it was like, you're going to give me your credit card at the door. Within 5 minutes, you're going to sign up, you're going to put your credit card in, I'm going to leave, right? It's a whole different mindset when you get into software, particularly TMS, right?
Yeah, I feel like that's got to be so important when considering selling TMS, right? So if you're under contract for another 2 years, and then your TMS sales guy calls you to try and do a hard sell, and you're just like, look, buddy, like, like,
what do you want to do?
What's out? You need to chill the hell out. So yeah, I'm sure that just comes with the experience. And then I don't know, kind of a unspoken message I've gotten from you throughout the podcast, just that kind of continual growth and like honing skills, just like learning and striving. So I feel like that, I don't know, I get a lot of cold calls from TMS providers where maybe they're not trying to understand where I am in my journey. And it's just kind of like, buddy, like, leave me alone.
Right.
So that's great to hear.
Well, it's interesting you pointed out the journey piece. That's one of the things. So Anthony is one of our newer sales guys, And, I was training them on doing all this. And so much of sales training is targeted at what process we're going to use as a salesperson. So it's going to start here, and then you're going to do a discovery call, and then you're going to do a demo, and then you're going to negotiate, and then you're going to do a proposal, then you're going to do all these things. And like, that's great in a perfect world. But like, my process has nothing to do with the way that a buyer is going to go through his journey, right? And so one of the things I focus on with Anthony is understanding where the buyer's at in their journey and meeting your buyer where they're at, not where you want them to be, but meeting them where they're at and then proceeding from there. Obviously, it's our job to make sure we push things through in a quicker fashion. And if we just waited around and let the buyers do whatever they wanted to do, we'd probably never sell anything, right? So I'm not saying that, but so much of training in any sales is so focused on the salesperson instead of on the prospect, right? And I'm sure you guys do the same thing in freight, right?
Yeah, well, I was going to say, it sounds like, at least what I try to convey to a lot of my people is that a lot of selling is actually listening, right? And I think a lot of people where you see stuff on, or at least I see stuff online. I don't know if it's just my feed, but like this like hard press sell, right? And it's listening is arguably like more important than the talking you're doing. And if I'm thinking about 2-3 steps ahead of how I'm going to respond or guide it instead of just kind of letting the conversation flow and feel natural as opposed to these, this hard press, it's I'm not going to get the results I'm looking for. And I think that's an underrated skill, or it's not talked about enough around sales. It's just the art of listening, which listening in itself is a skill, right? It's not just because we're communicating, I'm kind of responding. I might not actually be listening, right? So I think in any sales job, meeting the other party where they're at, kind of trying to understand where they are and making it a little bit more natural as opposed to this just the hard press sales. I think it's more efficient long term. You'll see more results.
Yeah, we couldn't agree more, man.
So where's the we've been talking a lot about the past and the present. Where do you think the future of the TMS space is going to be in 5 10 years? And where do you kind of see 3PL standing?
Oh man, that's a big question. Where do I see TMS going? I do see at some point, I do see AI becoming something that has more application in the TMS space. We're not there yet, in my opinion, but I do see it coming. The models are only getting better. The data that we're feeding them is only making them smarter, quicker. Yeah. So I think, I think that's coming. What I do think is going to happen as well. I think the space is too crowded. You see a lot of these companies that pop up. You see a lot of these companies that get a bunch of funding money, which is fine. Like, do what you do. But I see a lot of, I wouldn't even call it consolidation, but I just see a lot of these TMS providers going away. I have a lot of faith that we'll be around because we've been around, we've been privately owned, and we've been profitable for almost 2 decades, right? So for the first 5 years, we weren't profitable, but that's normal for any company, especially in the software space. But I do see a lot of people going towards more of like a consolidated model. And what I mean by that is I see a lot of people truly partnering and truly teaming up. There hasn't been anybody yet. Descartes Algex did a little bit of it because they bought Algex and they bought MacroPoint. But I do see more of that happening. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if somebody rolled up like a TMS, let's just say green screens, like a rating solution, and let's just say trucker tools. That exact case wouldn't happen, but these different tools being kind of rolled up into a package to kind of be like a major player. I think that could happen. And then the other piece that I do see happening as well is as these kind of on the AI bit, but a little bit different, as these AI tools get better at helping people code, there's some really cool stuff that like I frankly don't even understand because I'm not a software engineer, but I work with people who understand it. There's tools that can code something that would normally take a day for a senior engineer within literally seconds, right? And so as these tools get better and normal people, non-software engineers, learn how to use them, I do see a lot more people building out custom TMS solutions. But I also see them leveraging people like 3PL Systems or other companies that will allow you to build on top of what already exists, right? So take our base layer, our software gets you whatever percentage of the way there, use these AI tools, build out whatever makes you special and your secret sauce and apply it on top of the software. I see that becoming a lot more attainable because right now there's a financial piece of that just makes it difficult for a lot of brokers because building software and paying software engineers is expensive. But when the computer or when the AI gets better at it, I do see that becoming more of a possibility where there's just a lot more freedom to build what you want at a reasonable dollar amount.
So is your TMS web-based or is it software-based? Is it URL?
It's web-based. Yeah.
So how would that work if so what you're describing, right, with the time if AI and everything advances to that point, say for example, I wanted to build out on top of your software, would I just purchase your software and then build out on top of that, or it's essentially getting the bones from you and then
Exactly. Okay. So our typical client is a typical software as a service, right? It's a subscription model. You pay just like you do for freaking Spotify Premium and anything Netflix, right? It's just a monthly cost and you get access to it through the internet, right? Now, you're obviously beholden to our development roadmap, right? We're not going to build a custom solution for every single client because that's not sustainable. You're going to trust that our updates are going to be in your best interest, and you're going to trust us for maintenance, and you're going to, hope that we keep building out the software and improving it and scaling it and et cetera. But if you don't want to be held to that and you want to control your own destiny, but you don't want to spend millions of dollars and take years of development time, to your point, well, you buy the bones from us. We sell you a perpetual license to the source code. So effectively, you own the software as is today. You can't become a competitor. There's obviously cloud. Like, we're not going to create competitive TMS companies. And then you say, hey, 3PL Systems gets us. We like the house. Let's just use a house as an example. We like this model, but we want to add a back deck, and we want to add a bonus room, and we want to add a balcony, and we want to do all these things. All you have to build is those extra things, and you buy the base house from us, and then it's yours. That's your custom solution. You've just used us, our model home, as the base, right?
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. That's a good way to put it. Like how you convert it to a house with the bonus room, the balcony.
Yeah.
How does it work when those companies like go out of business? You were mentioning like, all these small companies coming up. How does it work? Like, if you're a customer and you buy a TMS and then 3 years later they go out of business, are you just screwed as the customer pretty much?
Then me and my people and my competition will call you. That's typically how it goes, right? Just like if you guys found out a big broker was going out of business, right? And you knew who that broker was working with, you'd be calling on their shippers as well, wouldn't you?
Yeah, no, 100%. I just meant that's probably goes into the decision-making process companies are when they're looking at a TMS.
Oh, yeah.
If you go buy a TMS that's new and you build up and all of a sudden they're out of business in 3 years, all your integrations, everything, you're starting from scratch and you got to do something fast, I
gotcha. No, that's a good point. So it's not uncommon when we're dealing with larger customers or larger prospects for them to ask for financials, and they're not asking for exact financials, but because they're relying on us so much for their business, they want to make sure, hey, are you profitable? Are you going to be around in 3 years, to your point, Matt? And like, are we risking our business? Because again, so much of a brokerage business relies on the TMS that if 3PL Systems were to just, let's say tomorrow, say like, hey, we're going out of business, like, screw you guys. We've got hundreds of customers that would be completely shit out of luck, right? So we understand the risk and the trust that people are giving us. So again, especially for larger customers, providing that security in terms of, yes, we're profitable. Yes, we've been profitable for years. No, we're not going anywhere. All those kinds of things do become critically important in the sale for sure.
Oh, that's interesting. I didn't know that they're asking for finance. It makes sense, but that's interesting.
Yeah.
I think that would be the way to do it. I was at Roadrunner and they were developing their proprietary TMS. Dude, it was so bad. So just for example, like a very just like base like level, just one example of just how clunky the software is. And it might be great now, right? Like, so I haven't been at that company in a long time, right? And it was actually a brokerage on St. Global. They're acquired by some private equity firm last year. But if we wanted to repeat a shipment, so say for example, I get awarded 40 loads on this lane, right? On a contract basis, I couldn't repeat the shipment, right? So if I build it one time, I can't, repeat the order to save no time. You had to go in and type out every single detail every single time, save it. You couldn't duplicate anything. So I mean, just for example, just the lost time.
Yeah.
Right. Like I'm sitting there for 4 hours just building orders.
When you could build it once and duplicate it 40 times and literally reduce your time, by 39 out of 40 times, right?
They were so bullish on it. They're like, man, we got this proprietary software. It's going to be great, and we got on it. We're all like, man, this is awful. Your software is terrible.
Is it getting more popular though, like proprietary TMSs? I mean, it seems to be gaining some popularity, and as you kind of mentioned, in the future, it's going to be a lot easier for software engineers and AI. Is that a bigger competition than the other, TMS providers for you? Is an in-house?
I wouldn't say so. I mean, we've found a way. Sorry, there's bugs out here. We've found a way to kind of serve that market if need be. It's not that big of a market. It's much bigger that people are just want an off the shelf solution. And typically, when you find people that are big enough to build their own, they have more money than they know what to do with, and so they just tend to want to like fully control it and build it on their own. But Will brings up an interesting point that people don't realize how hard it is to build software. People don't realize like how long it takes to build software, and that you have to build freaking everything, right? And so what I mean by that is like the one piece for like duplicating a load, that's a function that like may not seem obvious, and there's so many other things that you have to build, but they're not realizing that like, hey, we've got Will sitting over here building the same load 40 times. Is that a good use of his time? Now, do we build that today, or do we look at the other 400 tasks that we have to build this out? And so for us, we're in a unique position because we've been around for 20 years. Sure, if you were to talk to us 10 years ago, we might not have had all those random little things. We've had the duplicate function forever, but I'm sure there's something we didn't have even 2 years ago, right? That someone would have gone on a show like this and said, 3PL Systems couldn't even do this shit. Can you believe it, right? Like that happens. And over time, you obviously have the benefit of being able to kind of attack all these things. And back to one of the previous points that we were making, I think that's one of the parts that's hard for these new entrants to the TMS market. It's why you still see these legacy players dominating, right? It's why you still see the big names, the McLeods, the TMWs, the Mercury Gates, the ones that have been around forever, and albeit their software may be dated, they've built up a lot of stuff over the time, and it works, right? And so, I know those are my competitors, but I understand why people stay with them. I understand that there's a lot of benefit they have to being around for 3 to 4 decades, right? There's just a certain amount of time that it takes to build out every single thing that a software needs. A TMS is huge, right? It's a massive piece of software. It's effectively an ERP for transportation, right? And so you look at these ERPs, you've got the NetSuites, the Oracles, the Sages. These are products that are selling for huge enterprise deals, and a lot of TMS providers are like, hey, it's $1,000, it's $2,000, it's $3,000 a month, whatever it is. But yeah, no, building out software is hard. I wouldn't recommend it to anybody that's trying to build out their own TMS. I wouldn't tell them to do it.
Yeah, I have a friend that owns a brokerage, and they're say probably between like 30 and 40 million revenue a year, and he was talking about building out proprietary software, and then from building it out, he was then going to try to sell it. And I told him, awful idea.
Don't
he didn't know anything about technology or anything. He's like, man, I found this guy on Google. He's like went to college for like software. I said, brother, don't do that. Please don't.
I think you have to have the right tech. We have our own proprietary TMS in the 40 million range, but one of our owners, has gone public with a tech company. We spent well over a year building it. It just went live and it's going well, but they had a tech background, just.
Well, with the brokerage, I mean, so software is expensive, right? So, I mean, if you really looked at expenses and overhead, TMS and all these softwares is one of the top, recurring expenses for a brokerage. So at a certain point, with a certain amount of users and a certain amount of add-ons, when you do look at it, it might make sense to pay somebody to build out something because, I mean, at that point you own it, right? It does get expensive, but for the most part, Matt, to your point, having somebody that maybe knows what they're doing or connected somehow to do it, as opposed to just, kind of like we were talking about, Michael. It's a massive undertaking, TMS and general. So to think that I'm just going to Google and find this guy, just college. He just graduated college. It's like he's looking for a project. I was like, yeah, I'm sure he is.
But he's a genius, right?
Yeah, it's like, because if you're not a tech guy, which I'm not a tech guy, you get around tech guys and they start talking.
It's
a
different.
lot of, it's different, and you're just like, man, this guy, like, start throwing out some buzzwords. You're just like, damn it, like we might be onto something. Massive undertaking.
Yeah, the other piece that's worth calling out, and let's take HD Ships as an example, right? There's also a huge difference between building a software for one company versus building a software that you can sell to multiple companies, right? It's a completely different beast, right? So like, let's just take 3PL Systems or any of the other TMS providers that are prevalent in the market. We're not building for one company, right? So we're building for hundreds of clients. And so taking all this in, figuring out what to build, what not to build, and how to please everybody is a much different undertaking than building your own software. So like, if someone wants to build something just for their own company, I don't think it's that bad of an idea, actually. If you have the money, it increases your valuation greatly. If you were looking to exit, your multiplier is much bigger if you have your own proprietary technology. So it makes sense. But building a product to go to market and trying to tell every brokerage that your software is better than what they've already seen, I wouldn't recommend that to anybody, right? I mean, people say brokerage is the same everywhere. It's not. Every broker has their own little subtlety to the way they do things, and there's just so many different ways. Everyone thinks they have a freaking better mousetrap as well, right? So it's like, that's what you're up against.
Also,
you see that on the tech side too? I mean, are you guys like you guys debating ideas together? Is there like a meetup like TIA in the tech world where you guys all get together with different ideas and new innovations?
Not with competitors, no. We all know each other. We're all friendly with each other, but there's not a lot of that, like sharing ideas between each other. Not necessarily.
That would make sense. So, and also if you're building out, I don't mean to backtrack, but if you're building out a software for a brokerage, like an individual brokerage, right, and then you try to go sell it. Another, at least, issue I would have is if this brokerage is trying to sell me their software, then they're going to have all my data, right?
100%.
Like that's a concern. So I guess just another thing to consider.
That's a concern with investors too, right? I mean, I think I saw this on LinkedIn in terms of factoring companies, but it's concern if a brokerage is heavily invested in I would think that could be a concern if they're heavily invested in a TMS.
What about? So what is it? Ryan owns RTS, do they not? Am I misspeaking there?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, they were referencing a couple factoring companies, but in a post. But I mean, it was something I hadn't thought about. But I mean, it can be challenging because I mean, then I'm not saying that people misuse data, but I'm more of a trust.
Yeah. Well, so like here, full transparency, like we were spun out of a brokerage 20 years ago, right? So there was a broker that needed an off the shelf solution for his business, and he couldn't find it. And they didn't like anything that was on the market. So they built the original version of 3PL Systems, our product's called Brokerware, just for them. It was a proprietary solution.
That's cool.
And then and then you started showing it to his buddies, and they all wanted to use it. They understood very quickly, like, hey, there's a huge conflict of interest here. So they spun off 3PL Systems as a completely separate entity. The two brokerage owners were never employees of the company because we couldn't be selling to brokers and then being like, hey, but your owner runs one of my competitors and he's going to be able to access my data, right? And so there's ways around it. There's legal clauses and protections you can put in place, but a lot of it's born out of necessity, right? But it's kind of a double-edged sword. It's like, yeah, the tool is great because a broker built it, but it's also risky because a broker built it and I don't want him to have my data. So I understand both sides.
Yeah, that makes sense.
That's 22.
The best solutions are kind of born out of necessity, right? There's a problem, and then we come up with a solution. The practicality of it. I think that a lot of people maybe are creating solutions for problems that don't exist. Kind of, again, to backtrack to something that you said earlier with the technology, right? It's more about, okay, like, let me show you the use case for how this can improve efficiency as opposed to, I'm just going to jump to, hey, man, replace your carrier sales with this AI bot. And it's like, well, that's not really necessary. But, if you were able to demonstrate it in a way where I can look at it, see it, and see the practicality, you might be more likely to sell as opposed to this kind of like far stretched idea.
Totally.
Well, guys, we're close to an hour. Is there anything that we want to talk about before we call it an episode?
I'm game with whatever you guys want. If you guys want to call it, we can call it. You got to be careful with me though, because I'll keep talking. So if you guys want to keep going, I'll keep going. But no, I'm good, man. This has been a blast. I don't have really anything else that I want to say.
I guess I want to ask you one last thing.
Yeah.
And so with my experience with software and software companies, one issue that I've had is that the support or the help, right? So maybe the software is great. I love the software. But even for example, so I know this is like a very long time ago when you're doing your first demo and you said it went awful, right? So I've been on demos before where the guy's trying to sell me the software, then I ask him a pretty basic question. He can't get to it. I'm just like, well, man, like how you trust me to buy your software? You can't even do this basic functionality. Sure. Or I bought the software, I'm using it, and then I have a pretty simple question, but then to get my question answered, you're going to build me an arm and a leg. Or even, the integrations that they get pricey, right? Or
sure.
even kind of dancing around the true cost of something with the integration. So I guess I know I hit on a lot of different things for you, but I guess what is 3PL's approach to customer service, or how's the training or even implementation? I guess how do you guys go about if you're going to swap me from my software to your software? What does that process look like from purchase to implementation?
Yeah, no, it's a good question. So I'll start from a high level. So as much as everyone likes to say their software is easy to use and it's intuitive, and that may be true, and I think our software is, we know damn well that you're not going to succeed as a client if we don't help you, right? And so we understand how critical it is to train our clients, to make sure that they get onboarded correctly, and then continual training. So what does that look like for us from an onboarding perspective? Obviously, there's a handoff between sales and our implementation team, which is basically like, here, client needs X, Y, and Z integrations. They operate mainly truckload, or they operate mainly LTL, or whatever it is. They're set up on a cradle to grave model. They're set up on a carrier sales model, split model, whatever it is, right? Getting all these contextual items in to the implementation team to make sure that we train them correctly. And then we do trainings, and they're split up between multiple sessions. They're all recorded, so that we provide those recordings to the clients after the call, so that they can go back and watch it. Or if they have a new hire on day one, they say, hey, go watch the operations training for our TMS, right? And they can go through that whole thing. Data migration is a massive item as well. People have a lot of data in their TMSs that they don't want to lose. So we focus on data migrations for everything: customers, carriers, contact lists, product catalogs, shipping and receiving locations, and obviously load history. And so we focus on getting all that data into the system because there's a lot of value there. We don't want people to lose it. And so we make sure that they have that all on tap. And then we have an ongoing training mechanism through what we call 3PL University, which is like an on-demand Wikipedia-like site. There's user guides, there's video walkthroughs, all of that is available. And those are like shorter, like let's say 2 to 5 minute clips, because going through an hour and a half training and trying to like rewind or fast forward to the exact segment you need is like a nightmare. No one wants to do that. And then we have normal support as well. And when I say normal support, this is all included with our service. There's no extra charge for it. That's from 6 a.m. to 5 p.m. Pacific every day. You're going to get a live person. I could give you an 800 number right now. You could call it and someone would pick up. Actually, it's like 5 p.m. over here, so they might not. But there's an emergency line if no one picks up, and it's 24 hours. So actually, the emergency line would ring our technical support manager. So we have a live person available at all times. If there is anything that you guys need. There's also full email support and all that. And with us, the other piece is, because we're constantly building, we're not a company that's like, no, our product's done, like this is what you get. We're constantly building and evolving the tool. And so we know that takes a level of support to maintain training our clients on new stuff. There's things they don't know about, and just doing normal account management to make sure that they're utilizing everything that they're technically already paying for. Because as a SaaS solution, you get updates and new functions without having to pay for them, right? So we need to have ongoing education and training with our clients. But we're in a unique spot, and like from a size perspective. I actually think, Will, I've seen some of the like marketing-ish messages about Black Box. You guys say the same thing, like we're big enough to service you, but we're not so big that you're like a number on the screen. Is kind of like
small enough to kind of enough to deliver the punch.
Right. Well, that sounds way better than what I said, but
Those
All
close
right.
same message.
but we feel that we're the same way, right? Like we're big enough to not be just some like random company that you're not sure is going to be here. But we're not like a mega company with millions of dollars of investor money. Again, we're privately funded. And so we kind of find ourselves in that sweet spot where like we can still really build personal relationships and actually treat people as people, which again, brokerage and transportation, this is a people business. We're not foreign to that, even though we're technologists. We understand that. And so we kind of push that as a critical piece of our service, is that we actually will support you. We're not going to charge you an arm and a leg every time you pick up the phone, and you'll build relationships with the people here and not just be a number on a screen using a software. So that was a long answer. My bad.
Yeah, that was a great answer. And the reason I ask is, I don't know, the way I see it, at least as a consumer, when I'm considering TMS or looking at it, for me, it's really, like two sides to the coin. Like, and I think that, again, the way I see it, I'm not as in deep in the TMS world issue, right? But it seems like a bunch of companies maybe go to the extreme on the software side, just constantly building, developing, evolving, but then the service just takes a massive hit. So it's like, man, you're right. Your software is badass, it's killer, but even your people don't know how to use it. I can't get any help, and if I do want help, it's going to be very expensive. And one last thing I'll say, just because we keep talking about the AI, one AI tool, this is kind of a tangent, the note takers, those are great. That's one use case.
You like those?
I do.
Which one do you use?
Fireflies. And actually Trio, one of our sponsors, put me on that. Like I figured I would throw in, a compliment, or so to speak. Yeah, after just shitting on it for an hour.
We got a question, Will, by the way, in the comments.
Yeah, we got a question from Stan here. We can answer. He says, what was/is your timeline from software concept to sellable product to profitable business?
There's no one answer to that. And I'll explain, because we've had developments that take us a month. We've had developments. There's one we're still working on pushing across the finish line that has been 19 months that we've been working on. And so it really just depends on the scope of the project. It's hard to say. There's not one good answer there. It also depends, like, are you building something that is going to be, a small dollar amount, but a volume play? So I can get like 10,000 customers to pay me $100, or can I only get 100 customers to pay me $10,000? And so like, which one are you going at? Is it a volume play and it's going to be quicker to build and quicker to get the product out to sell? Or am I building something that's more of a, complex solution that's going to take time, but people will pay me more for? So Stan, good question, but I don't have a static answer for you.
Cam did have an answer for you. He said it's 5 p.m. there. They pick up till 5 p.m. Pacific.
Oh, that's right. I'm in East Coast time. Thank you, boss. So call them. We could put the 800 number in the chat, and people can call them and they'll answer. That's right. It's 8 Eastern. So
I get that confused too. I work for a West Coast company. I'm on Central Time, and it's always fun trying to think of what time it was. But it was good having you on, Michael. Hopefully we'll see you at Broker Carrier Summit in October.
Absolutely, man. Well, I appreciate you both. This has been a blast. Will, it's nice to meet you. I'm sure we'll cross paths here in the near future, and wish you guys both the best of luck. Will, move a shitload of freight from now until we talk next. And Matt, bring on a bunch of agents, bro. Wish you guys both the best of luck.
That's the way. We appreciate you, Michael. Thanks again.
Appreciate you again, Mike.
Awesome. Thank you, gentlemen.
That was fun. Michael's a great guy.
Yeah, that was a good one. I really appreciate everything he had to say, all the insight and kind of how they do things at 3PL. So yeah, he was a great guest. Really enjoyed it.
Shout out again to our sponsors, Trio, Black Box, Sales Dash, HD Ships, and brought to you by TAFs. We got factoring, CRM, offshoring, agent programs, your company. We got everything covered. Yeah,
and we'll have a new one to announce in a different side of the industry by the end of the month. So I guess we'll be back at it tomorrow at 3 with Danielle.
Yeah, no, 100%. I forgot about that. We do have a new sponsor August 1st. We'll have to fix our screen so we can fit the next company.
Yeah, we're going to have to figure something out. But yeah, we'll do that. Well, That was a good episode. That'll do it for episode 16. Again, we'll be back at it tomorrow. So if you're not following the page, turn it on or like it. Be posted for any updates.
Yeah, give us a follow on YouTube too. We're trying to grow our YouTube channel. So if you don't follow us, 2 Dogs 1 Pod on YouTube, shoot us a follow over there.
All right. Well, that'll do it for episode 16. Matt, I'll see you tomorrow at 3 with Danielle.
Sounds good. 2 o'clock, 2 Central, right?
I'll check the calendar. 2 or 3. It's on the page. You can check the 2 Dogs LinkedIn page.
It's 2. All right. I'll see you tomorrow.
See ya.